Chair, the meeting is now streamed live and the members of the public are coming into the meeting.
Thanks, Alison. Okay, we'll start the meeting.
Oh, Wardle.
Join
Hi,
the meeting.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for attending this meeting this evening. I've received apologies from Councillor Martin and Councillor Robinson. Do we have any other apologies?
No.
Hi, it's Carol. I've just got into the meeting.
Hiya, Carol, we've got you.
Thank you. Please don't mute me because I can never get back in.
Okay, no worries. Do we have
All
any
right.
declarations of interest?
No.
And there are no items for exclusion of press or public this evening. We have one urgent item of business, which is the application for Middleton Holiday at Home. As this is the last meeting, it couldn't be considered prior to the proposed scheme going ahead. So we're going to hear it this evening.
Okay.
Okay, agenda item 5 is to consider the minutes of the meeting from the 10th of December. Please, can you consider the
Agreed
meetings?
minute.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Carol. Okay, we're going to move swiftly on to agenda item 6, which is Middleton Township funds. And Lauren will introduce the report. And the applications are as follows: Talking Mines, Grimshaw Lane, Wood Lane, waiting restrictions, and Middleton Holiday at Home. I'll let you take over, Lauren, while I try and log on.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Lauren.
If I could refer members, please, to Appendix Item 1, which is page 8, which is the Middleton Township Funds Report Revenue Summary. Members will note on there the current balances available in their revenue budget. Would members like me to go through that or move on to Appendix 2?
Appendix 2.
Appendix 2 is the Middleton Township Funds Capital. Again, that has a list of current available funds within the capital scheme. Would members like me to go through that or move on?
Move on.
Move on.
Thank you. Appendix Item 4, Appendix Item 3. I skipped one then, didn't I? Yeah. Appendix Item 3 is a list of delegated decisions for information which have been approved since the last meeting. Again, would members like me to go through that or would they like to move on to Appendix 4?
Move on.
Thank you. And Appendix 4 is the items for consideration this evening. The first item we've got, Chair, is Tackling Mines application. That the amount being requested by Tackling Mines this evening is £2,719. We do have David Lyons, David Dunn and David Williams here to present that item. Would members like to receive an update from the applicant for 5 minutes?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
Yes, please.
Thank you. If David Dunn would like to come in?
Yes,
and Dave?
David Dunn also.
Thank you.
I've just received a message. We've got also Daniel Williams who's a representative from the Angling Trust. He's just trying to log in, but in the meantime, I'll give my little presentation and hopefully he's here in time for him to say a few words as well. So yeah, my name's David Lyons and I'm basically the founder of Tackling Mines. Tackling Mines, we run a number of angling events for people with mental health issues, families, homelessness. Basically, we're open to anybody, basically. So we use the many benefits of angling to aid people with a multitude of different issues. Angling has many benefits. Some of, for instance, engaging people with one another, engaging people with the outdoor, the green open spaces. Not only that, it's quite a good form of exercise. For instance, if somebody's coming back from, say, a shoulder injury, it's quite a mild form of exercise to build strength up. Not only that, you're walking to certain venues and different types of fishing. You're supposed to walk, or not supposed to walk, but is required to walk. So not only that, when you're not fishing as well, it engages the mind. You're thinking about what species you're going to be fishing for, where you're going to fish, what type of fish, etc. So the idea with Tackling Mines came about through my own experience with my own mental health. That was depression and anxiety. I was prescribed a number of medications and certain types of therapies, none of which compared to angling whatsoever. I couldn't believe like the progress that I was getting just through getting back into fishing again. So basically I wanted to share that experience, and if it was just helping one other person, just showing there are other ways, you know, you can tackle your mental health. So I went about and set up a Facebook page, and as soon as I set it up, things just hit the ground running. And within the first couple of months, or the first month, there was thousands of people following me and was really interested and inundated with how they can join. So we have a number of level 1 and level 2 angling coaches as well that run our events. So our angling coaches are DBS checked. So they've got first aid certificate, safeguarding for both children and adults. And not only that, we are also insured on the back of the Angling Trust insurance policy. Now, we have a number of venues throughout the Middleton Township. So we have the whole stretch of the canal that runs through Middleton, as most of you will know, and also Stake Hill, which has a number of different waters at their clubs. So we're able to target a multitude of fish, use different types of fishing methods, and yeah, just keep people interested and introduce them to different tactics. So as I say, because of such a large Facebook following, we've been inundated with requests, and there has been a huge demand from people within the region to get onto the fishing sessions. So this is where it comes about now. We're wanting to expand so we can get those people onto the sessions. At the minute, we're wanting to build upon our angling coaches, put through people through their coaching awards, the level 1 and the level 2, that will enable other coaches then to facilitate different sessions with different groups of people. Now, we already work with a number of mental health organisations within the region. So, for instance, if somebody comes up to us with, say, they've got a mental health issue, there is a risk assessment, there is a process that goes on beforehand before they actually arrive on site, and they're supported as well by their peer mentor or support worker. Another thing, Tackling Minds, we've actually set in a social prescribing framework within the region with 17 other organisations. So social prescribing is something that's really spoken about within the region, but not many people, including GPs, know how to access such services as Tackling Minds and other services that are there on offer. Well, that is something we're working towards, trying to reach not a different audience as such, but trying to reach other people, as many people as possible. Now, we have been supported from the Angling Trust. Can you hear me now?
Sorry, carry on, David. I think that might have been me because I've got 2 Zooms running and my camera's not working.
Yeah.
Sorry, David.
It's all right. Yeah, so since we started up, we was noticed the work we was doing by the Angling Trust being the governing body for fishing in the UK. Now, they've been watching what we're doing and following us and just being of a massive support. It was like really overwhelming to get support from such a big organisation. So I'll introduce you to Daniel Williams, and I suppose after Daniel's introduced himself, if there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, David, and welcome, Daniel. Daniel, unmute yourself. Yeah.
I hadn't muted myself originally. Somehow it seemed to happen magically. Hello, my name is Daniel Williams. I'm the Regional Development Officer for the North of England with the Angling Trust. So I support coaches, clubs, community groups, etc., as they move forward in their sort of goals and objectives. So very quickly, how I got linked up with Dave. Since the lockdown sort of started to slow up last year from May the 13th onwards, it became apparent that there was a great interest in angling as a means of sort of supporting people's health, mental well-being, and just the general outlook on life, and sort of get them outside after such a long time sort of, stuck between the 4 walls kind of thing. We've seen a growth in angling through that, and license sales have gone up 20%. So that's around about 100,000 people sort of coming back into the sport or trying it for the first time. There will be the number will be larger than that, because obviously some people aren't aware at the moment that you need an EA license, and that's one of our jobs, is to sort of make sure that they're staying sort of legal and within the lines of the law. David's program is of particular interest to me. Tackling Minds has grown really, really quickly, and I think it's because he's managed it well, and he's been supported by the right people, and he's reached the right people, you know, within the community. The first lot of programs that he's done have been through support groups, sort of Healthier Heroes, and some school groups, and a couple that I can't mention because of GDRP. The work's been exceptional, and the coaches that he's used are ideal. He's got a good mix. He's got female and male coaches with a lot of different backgrounds, so they're able to support in different ways. And he's got a good group or network of health professionals also supporting him. Just introduce myself really and how I'm working with Dave. I'm more than happy to support him with any questions that you've got for the programme.
Thank you, Daniel. We have got some questions. We've got one from Councillor Malcolm Boris, Sarah Roboth, and I'll take Sue Smith. Councillor Boris.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my question concerns. We do support a local group called Absolute Angling, and you've not even mentioned them. You know, and they can provide most of the services that you actually are going to provide, and it's more local, being at Rhodes Lodges, Myrtle Lodge, and as well as Stakehill. So have you had a chance to talk to Absolute Angling, see what they could offer?
I'd like to actually ask the councillor. I'm unaware of them. That's quite unusual, because obviously we sort of, as a development officer and sort of lead on sort of like coach license for the area, etc. I'm surprised I'm not aware of Absolute Angling. Do they use level 2 coaches, licensed coaches? You know.
Well, I have no idea. I just know that we, as a Middleton Township, we do support Absolute Angling.
Right.
And, you know, and they are more local.
Are they connected to any? Are they connected?
I've no idea. I can't answer that, but I'm sure Lauren will be able to find out. But they do run Rhodes Lodges, Myrtle Lodges, and parts of Stakehill.
You say they run the lodges?
Yes, yeah.
So that's their own waters.
Well, yeah, yes, their waters, yeah.
Can I just come in on this,
do,
please? So you'll find the guys who actually run Stakehill and Rhodes Lodges, it's now been taken over from a guy called, I won't mention his name, I can give you the details later if that's required. Absolute Angling had definitely not been on my radar, that's for sure. Now I've got a good relationship with the guys who run them waters as well, and it was them that contacted me initially to introduce themselves, because they could see the work that we're doing. Now, as I say, I'm not too sure about that. It's definitely an inquiry that I would like to follow up. As I say, they've not been on my radar, that's for sure.
Thanks, Dave. So I'm sure Gary and Jay, who run the lodges and run the waters, they also do Stakehill waters as well.
So you know, yeah, there you go. I didn't want to mention the name, but yeah.
No, I'm sure they'd be happy for us to mention the name. A lot of the councils on here have a very, very good close relationship with both Jay and Gary. So are you directly involved with them as well? Is this part of what they're doing?
Well, as I say, yeah. So basically, we have permission to use their waters. It was, as I say, with Jay that contacted me, Jay Clayton.
Brilliant.
Just through his own mental health issues as well. And he won't mind me saying it because he's very open about that. And he, as I say, he could see the work that I was doing and wanting to promote, basically. So he was right on board with that. But not only that, there's guys who have fished at their waters who've actually helped out. So Danny mentioned Healthier Heroes, who are a group of Army veterans. Now they use Stakehill and Rhodes, and as I say, they've been helping out on our events and even joining our events as well. So it's just a bit weird. I've never heard of Absolute Angling. That's quite strange.
That's Gary's business. It's his fishing stock business.
Right, he's never, you know, they've never actually said that to me. So
no worries. We'll move. I'm really glad that Gary and Jay are involved.
I'd just like to make a point. I've just checked on Google and I've found a page on them. There is no mention that they have any angling coach qualifications within the group. I've had no whenever we work with groups, obviously we share participation information. We do the license waivers to make sure that first-time participants are supported through, not having to buy a license so that they get to try fishing for the first time without that. All of the licensed coaches that Dave's using, they're safeguarded. They've got their DBS. They've got insurance through the Angling Trust, 10 million public liability, etc. And they have add-on stuff as well, sort of like mental health bits, hidden disabilities that they can train on. Sort of like I'm going to be sort of checking on Absolute Angling myself. They might be quite bona fide, but there's nothing there. There's nothing about First for Sport. There's nothing about Sport England. There's nothing about the Angling Trust. They don't. I'll have to check.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. I'm going to move on anyway. Councillor Robotham, then I've got Councillor Smith and Councillor Burke. Sarah.
Hiya, thanks. I can apologise that my camera sometimes works. Usually it works when I'm looking at my waist and I'm actually looking gorgeous, and for some reason it's not working.
Okay.
Can I just say, Dave, thanks so much for sharing your personal information. We are live in the public there, and I think that was a really brave move of you to share that about yourself. So thank you. I'm more than happy to support this. I think I would only have a couple of requirements. I think not biggies. I definitely want to see a gender split. Supporting women. I'm really glad that you've got women who have got those qualifications and can offer that level of support, but I'd really like to see more women taking up the sport, and what you can do to proactively to support that, and not just having that kind of representation, but actively going out and finding magic ways to get women involved.
Yeah, so sorry, have I interrupted you there? I'm sorry if I have.
Yeah, you have.
Sorry.
Let me get to the end. My other thing was also about kind of progression on. So once they've benefited from all the things that you spoke so well about, the relaxing, the making you feel better, it's about a kind of a progression on then to take the sport a little bit more seriously, maybe become volunteers themselves, or to engage in training around coaching, that kind of thing. It'd be really good to have that extra arm to the project as well. Thanks. Yeah, you can tell now, David. I'll shut up.
Thanks, Sarah.
I've just put that into two questions. So, in terms of like getting female participants, and we do have female coaches on board with us, that is something that we are promoting massively alongside the Angling Trust, is getting more female participants involved. We do understand it is a male-dominated sport, but at the same time, you will be very surprised how many females I'm in contact with and are actually engaged with the sport. Now, in terms of progression, so for instance, with the Get Fishing Awards we do with the Angling Trust, as I said earlier, it's basically introducing people to sport at a basic level, taking them up to, after 3 sessions, we say a competent angler, but it takes much longer for anybody to be a competent angler after 3 sessions. So we do engage with people, and we do teach them not only the basics, but right up until being a competent angler, up until a competition level. So there is that option there. I'm going to let Danny answer this question as well, because this is something I know it's massive about on their radar as well, if that's okay, Danny.
Yeah, by all means, we're extremely passionate about working with females and sort of creating a strong female angling program. We've been working directly with Sport England with the This Girl Can campaign. We've got a forum that's specific to female anglers. We've got a really substantial amount of level 2 female anglers at the moment. We've also had several female coach educators as well, so that's quite high level. That Sally Pitsey and Joe Hyde. The pathway would be Dave does an introductory program, sort of like sees people that are in, if this is the kind of thing that they'd like to do. That's obviously quite successful because the majority go on to do the CAST award, which would be it's a sort of a 3-category thing, and I wouldn't say that when they finish the award they're a competent angler. It just means that they can fish independently, so they don't really need support. They can, hook a maggot, unhook a fish safely, return it to the water safely. The thing that comes after that is the CAST program. Now that's sort of 6 modules, and it takes them through sort of like from where the Get Fishing Award ends right the way through to being a truly competent angler, i.e. fishing in a specific discipline for themselves. Dave's able to then expand on that by looking at the various other disciplines. I don't know if he's explained that, but he's got goals and objectives to sort of create predator specific work during the winter, sort of like spring into fishing work, where you sort of bring young people into the sport, sort of with traditional coarse native species coarse fish. Then some people might be pathwayed into competition. Now that's where Jackie comes in. Jackie, his main female level 2 coach, she actually oversees a program of activity that's specific to training young people and junior anglers into competition fishing. Her and another level 2 coach, Paul, they actually link up with one of the most premier fisheries in the northwest, and it's partridge fishery. It's a bit of a mecca for match fishing. The owner of that fishery is a female. She's very keen on sort of like developing female participation. So the opportunity for young ladies is that they can learn how to fish, get onto a sort of a local then regional competition circuit, and then probably end up fishing a national or even for their country. There are 3 female anglers in the Lancashire area who've all represented their country in coarse fishing recently. I could go on, but I'm hoping I've answered the question.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks,
really
Dennis.
pleased. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll bring in Councillor Sue Smith and then Councillor Burke. Questions, please. Sue?
Yeah, thank you. I'll comment first. I don't like angling. I don't like fishing. I find it really boring, but I do have some female friends from Manchester who do fish regularly. Every single, no matter what the weather is, they'll go out and they rave on about it, how it relaxes them and how they can go up and forget all the troubles. I'd also like to thank you, Dave, for sharing your mental health issues tonight. That's really brave of you, and I don't know whether you knew you was on record, but it's good that you have done that. I'm a big believer in having different things for people to do to counteract their mental health. So this is relatively new. I don't know anything. I mean, I have heard of absolute angling. I wouldn't like to discuss them tonight. They're not here, and I don't know what the website's like, because I've never been on it. Just a couple of questions. What's your process for referral? So if we wanted to refer somebody to you to take part in what you do, how would we do that? And are you a charity, or are you an actual business?
So yeah, we're a community interest company, and so basically, if somebody contacted us, for instance, from one of the organisations, which, for example, I'll use Mind, who've contacted us recently. Now they want to refer one of their clients to use the service. Now we've got a form for them to fill out. So what they do is they do their own risk assessment to find out they're actually, we can actually, how can I word it, is we can manage them when they're on site with us, and they're not like that.
The safeguarding, David. So you've got the things in place to safeguard.
We have got things into safeguard, which, as I say, is the angling coaches. So as I say, we have got things in place for that as well. So
Thanks, Dave.
May I just jump in, because it is quite an important question, that one, and it, it's like I can see Dave's sort of so the situation is that we aim in this project to reach the people that have fallen through the gaps. Now, Dave's worked with groups that have come en masse, so quite large groups, all with significant different issues, different needs within their support. And they've been extremely successful. Now, one of the skills that Dave has within his CIC, which is a community interest company, it's a non-profit organisation. It's all about putting back into the community. I've spent a lot of time talking with Dave, and I believe passionately in what he's aiming to do. He's looking at reaching the people that have fallen through the cracks, and there's a lot of them out there. It's not the people who've already got a blue badge. It's not the people who are already being supported by this group or that group. The referrals that he's getting are through specialist organisations such as mine. Now, these are people that have already been sort of diagnosed or they're within the system, and that's where the risk assessment comes in. Are they, because they're already being treated, are they well enough to sort of go out into the community and sort of start practicing their angling? Those that are will be offered that opportunity, and they will be looked after, with a great deal of respect. There are a lot of people, especially since COVID, that, like I say, have fallen through the gaps. These are people that they haven't identified as disabled. They might even not realise just how much they're struggling during this lockdown. And you've got people that have been sort of like, they're in the house, they can exercise once a day, little walk around the block. They're becoming frustrated, they've got cabin fever, they've got limited access to the sun and just being outside. And then you've got other people that even after the lockdown is opened, they have to self-isolate, or they're in a house where people are self-isolating, so then they're constricted to what they can do. And to go for a walk in the park or around the block, or even to hop on a cycle, there's a chance that they're going to meet people or come close to people, or but to remove them out of that area and get them on their own on a bank where the closest person to them is 15 meters away, and when they're approached by a coach, they're wearing a mask or they've got PPE. It's an opportunity that isn't present in any other way. So because of his social media presence, he's got individuals coming forward and self-describing, saying, listen, I'm struggling here, I need support, can you help me? That's one pathway. The other one would be through something like a GP referral. I know a lot of doctors that I've spoken to when we've done this in the past, it's a case of that people come to them with, say, a weight issue or feeling depressed or anxious, and the doctors would love to have an alternative to just going straight to prescription, because drugs don't always help. And that opportunity to sort of get out, try something different, learn some new skills, get a little bit of self-confidence, meet someone you can just share your troubles with, I think that's paramount, and I think that's the special area where Tackling Minds will fill that niche.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dan. Have you got another question, Sue?
Just a comment. If you could put in the chat your email address, Dave, so that I can get in contact with you, because I think it's really brilliant what you're doing, and it's another asset, isn't it, to tackling mental health issues, I feel. So I've just left my email address in chat, so if you could just send me your email.
Right, thanks, Sue. I'll move on to Councillor Burke, and I'll take one last question off Councillor Dale, then we'll move on.
Cheers, thanks, Chair. Dave, Daniel, excellent presentation, especially Dave mentioning the mental health issues he's had. It shows how compassionate you are and committed into getting this scheme up and running. All too often we have organisations come to us and ask us for funding. A lot of the schemes are mainly inside. It's very rare that we get schemes outside. So I think this is a big bonus for ourselves in Middleton to get people committed to going out fishing and to put fishing back on the map, to be honest. A lot of people don't know about fishing, don't know the first steps, and to have an organisation to come along and to work with local people, especially in this day and age now where mental health is a really big issue in our communities. Well done, and I fully support your application.
Fantastic. Thanks, Phil. Councillor Dale?
I'll be very quick because I think most people have said what I wanted to say, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it sounds absolutely wonderful. Absolutely right, Daniel. We're going to have an absolutely huge increase in mental health issues because of COVID. And I just think it ticks all the boxes. I think it sounds absolutely wonderful. So well done.
Thanks, Pat. Okay, Danny and Dave, I think I'll just put it to the members. Are we all in support?
Great.
Supported.
Absolutely.
Support.
From your
Supported.
presentation, thanks. From your presentation, Danny and Dave, and obviously your willingness to be open with us as well and very transparent. It's an overwhelming support from all council members. Please, can you pass your details on to Sue and contact details? I think we've got them anyway on the papers here. But we'll definitely all be in touch soon to discuss further with you. But that's an overwhelming yes from all of us, and well done. And thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yeah, I just want to, thank you. In regards to my mental health, I do find it quite easy to speak about because, you know, it's at the forefront of everything we do. But I just like to say thank you for your kind words.
No worries. You're welcome, and take care, and we'll be in touch soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You
And
can leave now if you want to.
In a traditional format, tight lines. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Right, we'll move on to Grimshaw Lane, Wood Lane waiting restrictions. And I believe,
Chair, just before you do that, could I check which budget this is coming from?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Lauren.
So is that from your revenue projects budget, which currently has a balance of 6,793? Yes. So that's £2,719 approved from the revenue projects budget.
Which is a very little amount for the project that they're doing. But yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to Grimshaw Lane, Wood Lane, waiting restrictions, and I believe Alan Webster is here to present this.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, my camera's not working, so I've no camera tonight. Highways have been approached to look at the problems of vehicles, visibility of vehicles exiting Wood Lane onto Grimshaw Lane, the problems with parked vehicles, and we have recommended the installation of waiting restrictions on the westerly side of Grimshaw Lane at its junction with Wood Lane for a distance of 15 metres on either side of its junction to protect the sight lines, and also down Wood Lane for a distance of 10 metres. So this would free up that junction and allow adequate visibility for vehicles exited onto Grimshaw Lane. There's also some double yellow lines missing at the junction of Dale Street, which is the entrance into the one-way system. As part of this commission, we will have a look to see if that's something that's been missed from some previous patching works, or whether it is a TRO which is required, which we could include in this one if required. The funding bid is, the application is for £4,000 to process the TRO. Thank you.
We've got a comment from Councillor Boris.
Thank you again, Chair. Yeah, well, now we've got Alan with us. How many complaints have we actually had on this one, Alan? Because with it being a major road, we've got nearly every road in Middleton's the same going onto a main road. Because the sight lines, the old highway code where you couldn't park within 15 metres or 15 yards of a junction, all that's gone through the window now. People park where they want. People are parked outside their own houses, which are next to that junction. And that, when you put yellow lines down, they're the people who are going to feel it most.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know, years ago, when Impact Partnership used to do all this, we used to have a full report from them stating every incident there was, every crash, every near crash, and every complaint. And now, it's one person complains and we drop everything and put double yellow lines down. So I'd just like to know the feel. But having said that, this money, Eastbourne can't afford it anyway, so it's coming out of Township capital. So it's setting a precedent for everybody else in the old ward to get money out of the Township capital for double yellow lines. That's it anyway. So
yeah, so Councillor, it's the number of incidents. I mean, this has been raised by Councillor West, so I don't know the background and the number of complaints in there. Obviously, when the TRO is advertised, there is a period for objections and support for any TROs. So then, if there are objections to the proposal, that would be then reported back to members for their decision whether to progress it or amend it or reject it in total. So that's kind of when that process kicks in for comment, so we can put the background into the objections received or support.
Right, yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Alan.
But it's like having a sledgehammer. What we really need there is speed control, because that's the old point is the cars are going too fast in the blind bend, and that's what's causing the problem. So it's more, it'd be easier to put a speed restriction up, I'd say.
The problem.
Alan, I'll just let June, Councillor West come in, because Councillor West has put this in, and then I've got Peter Williams.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I asked for this to be put in because one or two people have brought this up, Malcolm, who actually use that exit all the time, because that's the only exit you can use, because it's a one-way street. And you know yourself, it's on a bend. It's a blind corner, as you've said, and if you're turning right, you're taking your life in your hands, and it happens. I've done it myself, so I know from experience what I'm talking about, and it is bad. And I agree with you as well. And I think I said this to Nathan McKendry at the time, that in the old highway code, you weren't supposed to park within 15 yards of any junction. That's against the highway code. But it is a dangerous bend, and I fully support this. And I don't know whether anybody else will, but I fully support it. Not sure where the money's going to come from, but when we do get the money in East Ward, I'll gladly support it from there. Thank you, Chair.
Peter Williams.
Well, Chair, I was waiting actually for June to comment because it sounded rather negative from Malcolm as an East Ward issue, really. But obviously June is supporting it, and Malcolm, I'm not quite sure whether he's not supporting it. I suppose the other thing to mention is the principle about the ward funding these TROs. I know around schools we've got a very clear policy that if it's going to contribute to school safety, then we will fund it out of the main township fund. But in this case, would we be thinking of funding it out of East Ward's funds in the next year?
Thanks, Peter. Alan, do you want to respond to any of those?
It's just I know that speed's an issue along a lot of the roads in Rochdale. Well, across the borough, the speeding is an issue, and a lot of the times there's not any engineering solutions that, as a highways department, we can introduce. I know it sounds like it's passing the buckets around enforcement of speeding issues, with the police, and those resources are stretched. We fully appreciate that. But we really struggle sometimes trying to find an engineering solution to speeding problems. It's just a problem across the borough that we do encounter all the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Can I just ask Malcolm, had you already discussed this with Councillor Donna Martin and June previous to this application going in?
Well, it only came up because the wrong application came in at the time, because the highways had got the completely wrong end of the stick, and they wanted yellow lines down on Albany Way. So I got in and said, well, it's nothing to do with Albany Street, sorry. But like Peter says, I'm not against it, but it's all of a sudden one person complains, or maybe two. There's no actual crashes occurred there. It's all, I put it down to people who can't drive, right? And you take your life in your hands no matter where you turn these days because of the speed of traffic. But it's setting a precedent. Nearly every road in Middleton has got a problem, and we've got more traffic on the road. So whether it's supported or not. But I'm getting on. These people have lived in that area all these years, and now, as long as you listen to the consultation, if they come back and say, whoever's putting yellow lines down outside my house, I'm still going to park there. Yeah. No one's going to do anything about it. So you think yourself over the head, really. You're paying money out for something that isn't going to be enforced. But
thanks, Malcolm. I've got Councillor Burke and Councillor Rowbotham.
Cheers, thanks, Chair. I fully support what June was saying in relation to getting it done. If this is such a serious issue and a bad junction, and it warrants a full survey to be done, and the survey comes back and says, yes, we agree, we need to fund the double yellow lines, then I'm all in favour of funding the double yellow lines. In relation to setting a precedent, I think the Township Committee can take a view. If it's such a serious junction, then we need to get it done. And if it needs to come out of the main township funds, then we need to take it out of the main township funds. We've done it for, like what Councillor Williams said, the schools, where we've identified schools may need fencing or double yellow lines. And we need to do this on serious issues or serious junctions across Middleton. So I fully support what Councillor West was saying.
Thanks, Phil. I'll move on to Councillor Rowbotham, and I've got Mr. Emmett, Neil Emmett.
Yeah, I'm a bit torn, to be fair. I know it's a ward issue, and the ward will know more about it than any of us. And it should be a ward decision, really. You know, I've got money that if it's going to come from Township, then I want yellow lines on Rochdale Road. Now, Rochdale Road's a main highway where the Black Bull is, where the new houses are that have just been built on Clough Road. You can't turn right there. The cars that are parked actually on Rochdale Road are slowing down the main highway. Now, highways have said to us that we have to pay for that. We haven't got enough money to pay for that. So to me, there's a bigger discussion about where the money comes from and what the principles are around all of that. That's not just, oh well, I need it, so therefore we'll all pay for it. There needs to be a proper governance structure around it. I mean, I don't know when this process started that we have to pay $4,000 for TROs, out of a very limited budget anyway. I don't even know whether that needs revisiting. But it's a much bigger issue that I don't think that we should be put in a position to decide tonight. I think Councillor Martin needs to be able to contribute to the conversation, and it does set a precedent that I don't feel very comfortable going down. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Sarah. Councillor Emmett.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of issues, first of all. I mean, I think Councillor Rowbotham's right in that perhaps we do need to have a much wider discussion about traffic regulation orders and whether or not, when we've got junctions or parts of the highway that we deem that are deemed to be a little bit unsafe, we need to have that wider conversation as to what we do with them and also where the funding for that comes. Because the argument I will make is that, yes, a dangerous stretch of the highway or a dangerous junction might be geographically located in one specific ward, but it's used by road users that come from across the township and indeed from across the borough and wider. So whilst it might be physically in one particular part of Middleton, it doesn't mean to say that it's not used by people across Middleton. Obviously, it clearly is. I've always taken the view that if a ward councillor has put something in, then we should really support them on this. So, I mean, I'm following basically what June and Phil are saying. I think we should. I think we might need to look at where the funding comes from on this particular one, whether or not we can take it from the Middleton Wide Fund, or as Peter Williams has suggested, we take it out of next year's East Ward funds. But if it is a danger, let's make a decision tonight to do something about it, and then maybe later on in the year or whenever we have a much wider debate about certain highways issues, and I give you that guarantee as the portfolio holder, because clearly it's not just an issue for Middleton. That's a borough-wide issue as well.
Thanks, Neil. Are you proposing then? I've got a proposal to defer, or Neil, are you proposing that the funds come out of East Ward's budget next year?
Well, I'd like to hear what June's got to say first, and then we'll see from that.
Okay, Councillor June.
Well, I did have a conversation with both Donna and Malcolm, and it was agreed that if the majority of East Ward agreed with it, then we would ask it to be done. But I'm not sure where Malcolm lies now. Donna said she would go with the flow. She would go with whatever Malcolm and myself said. Personally, I think it's needed. I think it's a dangerous spend. I think you do take your life in your hand, because you go, when you're turning right, you've got people parked right up into the junction, and you can't, it's on a bend, and they do travel very, very fast. I fully support this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought it to Township. And it's a matter of safety, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
Councillor Barrett.
Chair, thank you. Let's get things set out. Personally, I can live with whatever decision you make, but I think it's if it's not sorted out now, and the highways don't get involved properly and investigate it properly, anybody can come forward and say, I'm having trouble getting out of my road. I want you to do something for me. Yellow lines is the only answer. Now, I like it to go out to, let it go to consultation and see what the residents say. These people have lived there for years. They're not going to be happy. And at the end of the day, we're here to represent our residents, not one bad driver who's struggling. So, you know, but it's I'll go with anything. If June wants it, she can have it. But like I say, East Ward haven't got the money. And I think you're just setting a precedent where anybody can just say, right, they've done it there. Mellaloo Street, another one. How long does it take to get Mellaloo Street? You know,
Chair.
Malcolm, you just muted yourself. I've got you, June.
Chair, can I just come back on that?
Yes.
I believe that East Ward should pay for it, like all other wards pay for theirs. And I think if we are going to go with it, it could come out of next year's funding from East Ward. That would be my proposal. And we're not compromising Township at all. Thank you.
I'll second that,
June.
Chair.
Thank you,
If
Councillor
June's
Emmett.
proposing that it comes out of next year's East Ward funds, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, Lauren, we'll put that through as coming from East Wales funds.
Thank you, Chair. I've made a note of that.
Thanks, June. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is holiday at home.
It is, Chair, yeah. So this evening, apologies for the lateness of this item. As members know, it does take place in summer, so it is time sensitive. So we've received an application from Scott Hardy for the Middleton holiday at home. They are requesting a total of £15,000. Now, there is an underspend from last year's budget from holiday at home of 5,560, which means that if members are minded to approve this evening, they need to allocate £9,440. Would members like me to go through the application, or it's entirely up to members?
No, I think that'll be all right, Lauren, unless anybody wants Lauren to go through it.
No.
No, fine. Are all members in agreement?
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just working out some figures, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So there is a remaining budget left of, let me just work this out. Sorry, Chair, it won't be a moment.
Okay.
It doesn't help that the items were next to each other. So the overall remaining amount in the township revenue budget, obviously including ward funds, etc., is 28,001p.
Okay.
Brilliant. I'm going to bring Val in.
Thank you, Chair.
The remaining revenue. Thanks, Val.
Thank you. Finance have advised that council approved policy places township revenue funds within non-automatic carry forward. As such, any unspent or uncommitted funds are unlikely to be available for the next financial year. We've received a request from Environmental Management for consideration of funding for township dedicated environmental crime CCTV cameras. These could then be deployed in the wards of the township at relatively short notice. Townships are offered the opportunity to directly fund their own easily deployable CCTV systems for location in fly tipping hotspots. The proposal is for township committees to fund the purchase costs of these modern units for sole use by the EM enforcement team. The enforcement manager would work with members at a committee and subcommittee level to prioritise areas for deployment. These cameras are provided by a Rochdale-based company, and EM already have one that's being deployed at hotspot locations across the borough. The cost of cameras is a maximum of £7,600 per unit. There is potential to get it at less than that if a number are purchased at this time. I'm asking whether members would consider allocating all of the remaining township revenue funds for the purchase of a number of units with delegation to the chair and vice chair to approve the specifics of the proposal. And the reason for asking that question at this time is I have a deadline of tomorrow to put forward justification for carry forward of any unspent township funds. That would provide justification for 28,000 that Lauren's just referred to. And if members did want to come up with other suggestions from that budget, you know, in the coming weeks or months, you could always consider a change of use. It wouldn't commit you to the 28,000, but it would commit the 28,000 to a firm proposal.
Thanks, Val.
I support that, Chair.
Thanks. Oh, thank you, Carol. I've got Councillor Dale, Councillor Smith, Councillor Burke, Councillor Williams.
Sorry, Donna, my question was on the last item.
Oh, Pat, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. Anyway, June cleared everything up, so it was absolutely fine. Don't worry.
Oh, sorry, Pat. Okay, I'll move on to Councillor Smith.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm a bit thick here, but maybe. What's that got to do with the holiday home funding? Does that mean that if we agree that tonight...
That's the holiday home funding.
What?
We've just agreed the holiday home funding too.
So I've missed it. Must have fell asleep. Sorry. It must
Don't
be...
worry. So basically, we've got £28,000 in the pot.
Okay.
We need to commit it to the cameras, but if we want to change of use in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, we're able to change the use of it. But the money has to be committed tonight so that we can keep the money and it's not taken off us, because we've got that money left in the pot. So what we're asking for is for members to agree for it to be committed for the cameras, which will be one pop-up camera per ward.
Yeah.
And it's to tackle fly tipping, antisocial behaviour. It's got registration, recognition on it. It's really good quality cameras. We commit the money to that. But if people have got any ideas about the change of use in the future, then we can change that use, but we just have to commit that money to something tonight.
Thanks, Donna. Yeah,
All right.
I'd commit to that.
Thanks, Sue. Councillor Burke, I've got you, June, after Peter.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Val's put forward into carrying the money over and putting the money towards the cameras for the time being, so we don't have it taken away by Rochdale.
Yeah, I think the cameras are just going to be absolutely fantastic per ward, one per ward, and we can decide where they go as and when we need them. So I think it will be fantastic. Peter Williams, and then I've got Councillor West. Can't hear you, Peter.
Sorry, should be able to hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the reason for committing the funding. I just think we need a much more detailed discussion on the use in terms of these cameras, because I'm a bit sceptical. It's a lot of money to commit for the township, and I don't fully understand how they're going to be used and what value we will really get out of the cameras. So I'm all in favour of doing this to commit the funding so that the funding isn't taken away from us. But can we have a more detailed discussion to make that decision and an alternate or alternative decisions about the use of the money at a future township?
Yes, thanks, Peter. Sorry, I've missed Councillor Emmett, then I've got Councillor West, and I've got Robotham. So Neil.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of comments really, and first of all, I mean, I do have there is a certain degree of skepticism in me in that this whole idea that we have to spend all the money before the end of the year, otherwise it's taken off us. And then obviously following on from what Peter's just said, we're then given schemes that we have to kind of rush through at the 11th hour without necessarily always having a full and balanced debate about it. So I do think that there is perhaps, you know, that there is a bit of a fly in the ointment and a fault in the system in that. And it would be nice, possibly in future years, to make sure that we have proper debates about things before just saying, well, we need to spend this money, otherwise we'll lose it, because people could come up with any kind of schemes. Having said that, I mean, this is a good scheme. I'll just slightly correct you on one thing, Chair. If there are going to be 4 of them, that's not 1 per ward, because
Sorry, 5.
there are more
5,
than
yeah.
4 wards in Middleton, but there are
Hotwood.
4 1/3 wards in Middleton. So we need to make sure that Hotwood Hall would also be covered as well, but by the 4. But in principle, I'm not against these. I'm in favour of it. Fly tipping has become a problem over the last, certainly has become more of a problem during lockdown, mainly because 2 reasons really. People are not entirely, people are still not completely sure that the recycling centres are open. They are fully open, you know, and I went to the recycling centre in Middleton only on Tuesday of this week. Then secondly also is that because we've been in lockdown, a lot of people have taken advantage of having home clear outs, and that's certainly been evident, and you know, I'm guilty of that. We've been having clear outs at home during lockdown. Hasten to add, I've used the recycling centre properly for that, but there has been a bit of an increase in fly tipping across, not just across our borough. There's been an increase in fly tipping across the United Kingdom during lockdown, and we really do need to start clamping down on them. You know, we've got a lot of policies in the pipeline to clamp down on fly tipping. One of them is to give people, anybody that catches a fly tipper and can either take photographs or film the person doing it, we're considering to give a small reduction on their council tax too. So it's things like that to involve the wider community, but definitely support the idea of looking at getting these four cameras. But I do think that Peter's correct in that we do need a much wider debate. And can I make a plea that in future years, if we're sticking with this idea that we have to spend the money or we have to send it back, that we are given more of a lead in time so that we can have a better debate about how we spend that money. Because, you know, it's not fair on townships for any department of the council to come back to us and say, you got to spend this on X, Y, and Z, or else you'll lose it, because I don't think that's fair to us.
Okay, thanks, Neil. That is absolutely something that I'm going to take back to the leader, because it basically, we have only just found out about it, and the township managers have only just found out about it as well. So I will take that back to the leader, because it's not acceptable. And obviously, you know, if we are committing the funding, we are able to have a discussion about change of use in the coming weeks or months, whatever you want to do. Okay, I'm going to move on to Councillor Robotham. Sorry, Councillor West, sorry.
Yeah, I thought there was a few more before me.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with a lot of, I agree with absolutely everything that Neil has said, and he said a lot of what I wanted to say. It is very short notice to give us, you know, without having a real detailed discussion, debate, the pros and the cons, etc., etc. What I'd like to know as well is that these 5 cameras for these 5 wards are going to go into designated places that the wards want them to go into. How will that be agreed upon? Do we have to wait for the flight? It's just a bit woolly. And also, if at a later date we have money to carry over in the years following, what will happen with the cameras? Are they ours? Do they stay with us? And also, we also know about the unsuccessful use of the cameras outside schools that we paid for. We never seem to get any cameras in Middleton looking outside the schools and looking at people who park wrongly or who have fisticuffs or things like that. So I think there's an awful lot to discuss, really. I mean, in principle, I'm in agreement with it. If we have to do it, if we have to carry it forward, then I do agree with it. But there's a lot of unanswered questions as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, June. And it is about committing the funding to this project, but we're able to change the use. Now, in previous years, Township has lost funding, and that's something that I'm going to make sure we don't have again. So that's why I'm pushing now for this. But we can absolutely change the use of this. So if you don't want to commit to the pop-up camera, then you can change the use of it in the future. Okay, Councillor Robotham.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this in our ward, and I thought at first we kind of thought, oh, it's a bit snoopy and it's a bit, you know, not comfortable for residents and all of that. But then actually it would have been really useful to have a camera when the York Stone kept being pinched at the back of the parish church. It would have been really useful to have a camera underneath St. Stephen's Gardens where there was loads of complaints about drug dealers. It would be really useful to have a camera in Jubilee Park where you know, there's nighttime activity and we haven't got enough PCSOs to go and have a look to see who's misbehaving. It's disappointing that we have to make this decision really quickly because otherwise we'd lose money. And I don't understand what it goes back to Rochdale mean. It actually just simply goes back into our collective pot. And I do think the chair needs to represent us as a township strongly to make sure that this situation doesn't happen again in the future, and that we're not pushed at the 11th hour having to make a quick decision. I mean, if Val can give us any more reassurances about this particular scheme, that'd be really useful, because I understand that the fines, if anybody's collared and they're taken to court and fined, that's a potential income, and it's whether that comes back to us really as a township, because that has potential to have an added value. Thank you.
Val, are you able to, have you got any information, are you able to answer that question?
Yeah, just a little bit more information. Council passed a policy, a finance policy, that stated that only certain grants can automatically carry forward. So this is not about saying township funds can never carry forward, but it's not automatic as it has been in the past. So there's got to be a justification. And that justification would be if we were able to say, this township is committed to X, Y, and Z. If we just say, send the spreadsheets to show what the balances are, and it shows £28,000 unallocated, and there's no justification for that, there is a risk that it wouldn't automatically carry forward. In terms of the speed cameras, that literally came in, coincided with an email that Martin Taylor sent to township chairs last week to ask whether anybody would support this idea. So I'm suggesting that any unallocated balances are committed to that, but we then have to work up the details. So I would sort of advise that, because we don't know how many potentially there could be, we don't know what the final cost of each camera may be. So that needs a conversation with Martin Taylor, and then I would suggest perhaps an informal meeting be arranged to give you a briefing, to tell you how many you could afford, and to give you the detail of how they work and where do the revenue funds go for the fines. I think all that needs to be answered, but you've got the time to do that if you know you've got the funds committed. And if at the end of that you decide, actually, we don't like the idea, or we just want one for the whole township and we'll decide where it's sited, and you want to fund the rest, you know, put the rest of the budget to something else, it does give you that opportunity to rethink it at a later date if you're not happy with the outcome of the project.
Thanks, Val. I think we'll arrange that meeting with Martin as soon as possible. I've got Councillor Peter Williams and Councillor Burke.
Chair, thank you. I suppose all we're doing here is committing to possibly spend this money. The whole issue of the detail and how this scheme is going to function, we can look at again and make our decisions. And for example, we might say, well, South Middleton doesn't want to commit to it, and therefore we don't have a camera. We'll have, please give us the money for something else, or alternatively, it's a good scheme and we all commit to it. But only need 2 cameras and it's half as much or whatever. So I think we can just postpone the decision until another devolved funding meeting in later on in the year.
Thanks, Peter. Councillor Burke.
While I agree to some extent with Peter, Councillor Williams, I think Val made it quite clear she needs the decision tomorrow. We need to decide tonight what we're going to do. And given the present circumstances, I think the proposal that Val's put forward is quite a good proposal. At least we're saving the money in the Middleton pot, which could be changed at a later stage. But bearing in mind, the account people need to take on board the last 12 months has been a really difficult time for everyone, including the townships, where we've not been able to have our meetings, meet with our regular community centres, community groups to see what sort of funding they have. So there should be a bit of leeway given there before any harsh decisions are being made. While I take on board what you say, Val, I fully support it as well.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, so I'll move this as being supported. Can all members just put the hands up? Brilliant. Okay, and obviously we'll be having another meeting at a later date to discuss in more detail what ward members want to do. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to officially close this meeting, but can members stay on because there's a special one-item meeting of the Township Committee that's going to follow this meeting. So I'm going to formally close this meeting. If members of the public want to leave. Does anybody want a 5-minute break to get a brew or a toilet break, freshen up? No? Okay.
Yeah, can I just get to the loo? 1 minute.
Do you want to? Are you being serious?
Yeah, being serious, 2 minutes.